Hello guys, it is Friday morning here in the UK. Happy Friday, wherever you are, let's do this. Today we're going to be talking more about Declan Rice, why not, and his impending move from West Ham to Arsenal. We're going to be discussing the finer points of those negotiations, what's happening in the deal at this current point in time, why does it matter, what is it that West Ham want, can Arsenal give it to them? Before we do, because we're going to talk some big numbers with Declan Rice, 105 million. There have been some big numbers as well on the subscriber count for this channel, so thank you so much for your support there. It really does help, and many of you have been in touch to say you're enjoying these videos, which is really nice for me. I really appreciate it. If you want to get more of them, the best way to do that is click that like button, click that subscribe button, keep the channel growing. So thank you so much. I really do appreciate it. So let's get on to Declan Rice. This deal is one that is getting closer and closer. As you all know by now, the fee has been agreed, 100 million plus 5 million in add-ons, but the payment terms are still being decided. But it's become a different type of conversation because there is this broad agreement, because Arsenal are now the only club left in for Declan Rice, because Arsenal are now the only club Declan Rice wants to go to, because it's the best option for West Ham. Everyone is basically on the same page. It's going to happen. But it's changed the conversation. It's no longer between Edu and Karen Brady. It's now a conversation between accountants, effectively. People who are trying to make the numbers stack up for both sides so that this transaction, this enormous transaction, can take place. It is complex and it is a vast sum of money. It could take a little time to resolve. I'm sure fans will get antsy with each passing day. Why isn't it done yet? Why isn't it done yet? Is something wrong? Let me just sort of nip that in the bud now. There is no reason to panic about that. If anything, the people involved with making this deal are a little bit more relaxed now because everyone is on the same page. It's simply a question of getting the numbers to stack up on both sides. And we are talking about £105 million here. This is not something that either side takes lightly. It's a transformative amount of money for both clubs. So that fine detail is going to be crucial. Now, as you know from the wider reporting, the big emphasis is on the speed with which West Ham get their money. They're happy, 100 million up front, fantastic. But what do you mean by up front? How many years are Arsenal going to pay that over? I think Arsenal came in hoping to pay that over 4 or 5 years. West Ham looking for something more like 2. You'd imagine a compromise could be struck there somewhere in the middle. Why do West Ham want it up front? Well, some of that's just basic common sense. I mean, if I come to you and tell you I'm going to give you £1,000, do you want it today or do you want it, £1 a day for the next 3 years? You want it today, most likely. It means that they have, a lot of cash to work with. They're losing a key player in Declan Rice. The more cash they have available this summer, the more adequately they can replace him. They can use it as a proper building block for them to rejuvenate and improve their squad ahead of a European campaign next season, let's not forget. And Arsenal, on the other side of the coin, they want to hold on to their cash because that too grants them greater flexibility in the market. Declan Rice is not the only deal Arsenal are doing this summer. We know Kai Havertz is in the door, signed, sealed, delivered. Jurrien Timber edging ever closer. We'll talk about that a little bit later on. So Arsenal want all the cash available they can too. So if they can get away with paying in more instalments, as many big transfers are done these days, then they absolutely will do. There is, of course, another aspect to this and a reason why there's probably more emphasis on speed of payment now than there have been for a few transfer windows. And that's the economic environment we're existing in, particularly in the UK, where inflation and interest are on the rise. Now, I'm no economist, okay, but there is a very good article in The Athletic today by Joey Durso, a colleague of mine, where he writes about this. I check out his Twitter timeline. I'll try and put a link to it as well. Really worth a read. But the economic situation globally, and particularly in the UK, is having an impact on these negotiations. Now, one thing is cost of living, cost of existence, cost of everything in the UK is very high right now. The cost of running a football club, especially so because, energy bills are something that's affecting you, me, everybody at home. Imagine when those energy bills involve paying for a training ground or paying for a stadium to be kept running. It's expensive stuff. So there is a need maybe for more cash, more liquidity than ever before. Also, with inflation on the rise, money effectively decreases in value with time. So let's say you pay a transfer fee of £40 million, it's going to be £10 million a year. The club who receives that money over 4 years, the £10 million they get today is worth considerably more than £10 million in 4 years' time will be. So again, there's a big incentive to get as much money as possible up front. With inflation spiralling, the sort of final instalments are going to be worth less in sort of real terms to the selling club. Now, West Ham do have options there. They can use the sort of guarantee of future money from Arsenal to borrow against to improve their cash flow in the short term. But again, with interest rates high, that may not be a particularly favourable thing for them to do. Arsenal, meanwhile, they're in a position where, well, they can borrow direct from someone very close to them. They have borrowed, up until this point, quite a substantial amount of money, into the hundreds of millions from KSE, effectively from Stan Kroenke and his business, KSE UK, the UK arm of that business. They can continue to do that, and I suspect in order to get a deal the size of Declan Rice over the line, they will have to do that. But the benefit is that KSE are likely to offer Arsenal, as a kind of sibling company, a pretty favourable rate with fixed terms that will not escalate based on interest. That's my understanding, that there are these loans to KSE, but generally they are about as friendly as you're going to get in the current climate. So that's one thing that Arsenal have going in their favour. If they need to acquire more cash up front, well, they can borrow it from the owner, who thus far has shown a willingness to do that now that he has 100% control of the club. That is probably the likely outcome here. Arsenal will have to borrow a bit of money in order to make this deal happen quicker. But even in this economy, I think those KSE terms will be reasonable. So that's sort of the picture. And as I say, the mathematicians, the accountants, the boards, KSE, David Sullivan, they are involved in these conversations now, trying to get to financial terms that make this deal amenable. I don't get the sense it's something that's going to happen within hours. I think we're looking at days, possibly a bit longer. But there is a bit of relaxation around it. I think people are accepting that this deal will get done on all sides, Arsenal, West Ham, and the player himself. So that is positive. Meanwhile, Arsenal continue with their other transfer business, Jurrien Timber from Ajax, a deal creeping ever closer. I think that this one is in a similar place to Rice, where there is kind of a broad agreement on a fee in the region of £40 million, but the exact terms of how that will be paid are still being debated. And another point for consideration here, we are approaching, June 30th. For many clubs, the start of July marks the beginning of a new FFP window, and that determines why there's been quite a lot of frenetic transfer activity in the last few days, and why some deals may extend over into July. Essentially, if it's better for your club for the deal to be on the window ending June 30th, you have been in a hurry to get that deal done. Chelsea, I imagine, needed Kai Havertz's sale on their books before the end of July. Lo and behold, it got done. Arsenal, we don't know their situation, but it may be, in the case of Rice, in the case of Timber, it will depend on Ajax and West Ham too. It may suit all parties for these deals to happen in July rather than June. And that is just something to consider as well, about why some of these delays might be happening. But very confident about both. I think they're both really exciting signings, and we'll be talking about them more individually in terms of what they can bring when those deals are done. Not sure if I have a video of the weekend. I think it depends on the news cycle. See how it goes. But thank you so much for watching them. And again, I hope you found this one useful, interesting, a bit of a different perspective on these negotiations. Quick thing, a few people have been in touch to say, why is your house so big and so empty? It's not my house. We are renting this accommodation while my wife is working in this area. And we actually moved back to our flat, our apartment, today. And as regular viewers will know, my apartment is much smaller and much more full of stuff. So it's going to be a bit of a battle to find a kind of a non-distracting background for you guys, but I will work on it and do my best. And listen, if you all subscribe, I can just buy a mansion anyway. So can you get on with it, please? All right, guys, good chatting, and speak to you all soon. Bye-bye.